Welcome back everyone. I'm sure many of you are aware of the recent change to Shattered Path Signet. The damage increase no longer works in PvP, and honestly, it is a much needed change to an excessively overperforming mythic. So obviously that has affected many werewolf builds, including mine. So I'm here to showcase an updated build. I'll be focusing mainly on the changes I made, and I will also include some new gameplay footage. Do check out my original build as well as my guides for more information on the other parts of the build. So without further ado, let's get started. I've made two major changes to my build. So the first one is that I swapped out Signet for Huntsman War Mask. This is a very strong damage mythic. As you can see, it gives our build a total of about 20% more damage done since we do not have minor berserk. And it's also fairly easy to use. You just need to bash an opponent to apply the mark on them. Do take note that the mark can be purged, so sometimes you do have to reapply it. Just keep out. You can keep track of it using a buff tracker, but you don't really need to since it kind of just applies a very huge mark over their head, so it's fairly easy to keep track of. Now this mythic is a bit annoying to use when outnumbered because it does have a 10-second cooldown. So sometimes you might run into situations where, for example, you accidentally bash the wrong target, or an opportunity suddenly arises where you need to swap to a different target quickly, but you just reapply it on someone. So it is a bit annoying to use sometimes, but it's definitely, I mean, the mythic is not that hard to use in the first place. It's just that when you have multiple targets, you do need to uh, play a bit smarter and keep track of it well. So the other change that I made was I swapped out Serpent's Disdain for Twice Fanged Serpent. Now you can also run Oak Father. Honestly, both sets are very similar. But let me explain why I decided on this instead. So Twice Fang gives you much more pen. I think it gives about 5.6k for the 5-piece bonus. This is definitely a much higher pen than Oak Father will give. Although Oak Father does give some weapon damage, I still think that the higher pen will result in more damage most of the time. And normally, people don't use Twice Fang because it is hard to keep up if you're only one barring it. But on Werewolf, that doesn't really matter. So yeah, that's out of the question. And another reason is that next patch, there will be some hybridization changes. Like for example, major sorcery and brutality, I believe, are getting combined into one buff. So that is a direct nerf to Oak Father. And that's why I decided to go on with Twice Fang to future proof it, basically. And I also made some changes to my armor. I used to run 3 heavy, but now I run 4 medium. And frankly, I think you can also go 5 medium. It's perfectly fine. If anything, like I said before, I feel like Sock Werewolf lacks damage more than survivability. And especially now that all the very strong status effect builds have been nerfed, I really don't think you need that much mitigation anymore. So you can go with 4 or 5 medium. That's pretty much all the changes I made, but there's two important things I want to address. The first one is gorethief. Gorethief, I think, is still the strongest set overall because it gives you the most combined defense as well as damage. But Sock Werewolf is tanky enough that you do not need gorethief to survive, although it really helps. So if you are looking to run more damage, I highly recommend running Savage Werewolf instead. Based on the numbers and testing I did, gorethief does about an average of 6% of my total damage in a fight one-on-one. So Savage Werewolf will definitely be much higher DPS since it already gives 6% damage on top of a very powerful proc. Now I do want to mention that if you have played my previous build, which is Signet and Disdain, you will realize that gorethief may not hit that hard. This build is different. Gorethief hits much harder on this build because it is buffed by Huntsman and Twice Fang Snake. Previously Signet and Disdain doesn't buff gorethief. So gorethief actually hits really hard now. As you can see, the two tip is pretty high, and this is not even fully buffed. I've gotten like 10 to 11k crits on this before, and on average it crits about 8k, and non-crit is usually about 6 to 7k. So this is definitely a very strong burst option for Werewolf now. But again, if you are looking for pure damage, I still highly recommend going with Savage Werewolf instead. Now, the other thing I want to address is my weapon traits. I still run double charged, even though I'm no longer relying as much on status. And the reason for that is I still believe maximizing your status chance is very important on this. In fact, I think it's even more important now because without disdain, you might realize that hemorrhaging will not be able to, it will be quite hard to keep up 3 stacks of hemorrhaging now, since you do not have a guaranteed source of hemo. You have to rely on the rip and tear as well as your bleed dots to keep it up. So I think not going double charged will make it very difficult for you to keep hemo up, and it also doesn't guarantee your poison and fire enchantment will proc their status effects. I included a small table here to summarize the respective status effect changes. But yeah, I mean, personally, I think what I like to say is that, in PvE, the meta is to run two charged even without Signet, because it is naturally the most damage most of the time, especially if you already have high weapon damage, which is the case on Werewolf. We have about 6.5k weapon damage already. So, but alternatively, you can run Nern main hand, but I still recommend both running both charged. So that's pretty much everything I want to address. So I will just quickly go through the rest of the build. If you already run my previous build, you can skip this part. But basically, I'm just running all in pen on the non-heavy pieces, reinforced on the heavy, all HP enchantments, 2 healthy and 1 protective, all damage enchantment, doesn't matter whether it's mag or stem. I'm running flame and poison and double charged. The weapons don't matter, the passives don't apply in werewolf form. For my skills, I'm running the following morphs. If you need explanations on the ability, you can check out my guides or my other build video. And for my food, I'm running sugar skulls, tri-stack, and I'm also running armor pots. So armor pots are still best in slot for werewolf, since you don't need any additional sustain. I'm also still running the Lover's Mundus. And for my race, I am an Imperial, but as mentioned before, I think Orc is the best choice, because after playing Werewolf for a while, I feel that I really don't need the additional sustain. I feel like I'm way over sustaining on Sorc Werewolf. So if you haven't chose a race yet, I highly recommend going on to Orc Werewolf. And for my CP, I'm still running the same CP, Focus, Mending, Duelist Rebuff, Deadly Aim. Force of Nature, I still believe is very good. You still have very high uptime on 4 different status effects. 2.5k pen, in my opinion, is more valuable than 6% direct damage. Because I think like about 1/3 of your damage at this point will be damage over time, so you're not really getting the full value from Master at Arms. And for my red CP, I'm running Pain's Refuge, Survival Instincts, Strategic Reserve, and Fortified. So that's pretty much the build. So let's move on and enjoy some gameplay footage.